Hi everyone, it's Keren here and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming again. Today I have a tutorial which features a 9-panel canvas polyptych. It has 9 canvases that are 4 by 4 inches and they're all spread out throughout to create a larger canvas that is split in 9 ways. This type of canvas is called a polyptych because it has many panels. I'm sure you heard of the word triptych, and that type of canvas has 3 panels. Well, this one has many, so that's why it's called polyptych. I hope I'm saying that right, but if not, I'm sure you know what I mean. This is a fun way to create a larger canvas that could be used either with 9 separate canvases, or you could group them into 3s or into 6 or 9 canvases and put them together. The best way to work with these is to have them all bunched up together, so then they all connect to each other in terms of color and texture and design. Today I'm using the Prima Marketing Amber Moon collection, and this is the paper pad with all the papers that are included in the collection. As always, I have all the products and links listed in the description area below. Here you see is the canvas. There is 9 panels to it, and they're 4 by 4 inches, and they're perfect for this, as you can decorate each separately or do them all at once. I am using wood grain paper from the collection. I ripped it out of the paper pad, which has a lot of beautiful designs, and I'm cutting it into 4 by 4 squares. I am being careful because I really want some of these beautiful sentiments to be part of the canvas. So I am cutting them out with my scissors and then using the rest of the wood grain in the back as panels. Because this is a double-sided paper, I'm able to use it both sides and use as much as I can to not waste any paper. So I'm using the wood grain for one side, and then I'm going to use the other sentiments for the other side. I didn't want all the squares to be wood grain pattern, so I grabbed a couple of other papers from the collection and I cut them into 4 by 4 squares to rearrange them on the actual canvas panels. Most of the papers I cut look vintage, and they have music notes and very nice patterns with birds and other vintage images that look really good for this type of project. And of course, I also included the wood grain. I did play around with the panels and did change them a few times. Even after I was set with the actual squares, I was still changing them around throughout the project because I wasn't sure how I wanted them to be at the end. So I'm just playing around to see what's my favorite way that they will look. I took Prima Marketing Soft Matte Gel Medium from Finnabair and I started gluing the squares to the background. And this is where I started thinking that I don't want some of these darker squares, so I ended up substituting them for the other ones and still had to play around to make sure that they are even and they're not too repetitive on one side. Like I didn't want to have 2 music notes on the same side and so forth. So I did play around with this a few times, and you'll see at the end I got the panels the way I wanted them. Right now I'm just gluing them to the background and then sealing them with the gel. Once the gel medium was dry and the panels were all dry, I took my distressing tool from Prima and started distressing the edges of each one of the panels. I put my panels on top of a paper towel because when you distress paper, it creates a lot of residue, and it's just easier that way where it's all contained in the same place. I love this distressing tool because you can really distress things really well, and it helps with creating that really nice distressed look on the edges. Of course, I did this to all the panels, and then I took clear gesso and gave each panel a coat of the clear gesso because I knew I wanted to spray the panels and I wanted to make sure that they don't soak up into the paper. The gesso helps protect the paper and it helps it not rip when you spray too many things on it. I also took some white gesso because I wanted to create a little bit of a distressed look in the background, but I didn't want to cover the whole pattern. So I took a palette knife and started adding the white gesso towards the edges of the panels, and that helped to create a really nice distressed look around the edges. Once the white gesso was dry and the clear gesso was dry, I took some light paste from Prima Marketing. This is the Finnabair light paste, and a lace stencil also from Prima, and I created a little bit of a lace pattern in the background. I heat set the paste really well because I knew that I was going to add the sprays next, and this part needed to be very, very dry so nothing gets too mushy. Now it was time to add the color bloom sprays. And I really love this technique, although I've done it many times before, where instead of spraying, I open up all the bottles and using a thin paintbrush, in this case I'm using Finnabair paintbrushes from Prima, these are the thin ones, I dip them inside the color bloom sprays and create the color around the edges of any project, in this case the canvas, and then using a little bit of water help the color bloom spray spread throughout the canvas. I'm starting with golden oregano, which is a brownish gold color. I'm also adding pot of marigold, spring dandelion, and poppy fields. This is the beautiful colors of autumn that I feel go well together, and I'm going to interchange between the different colors because I want them all on the canvas and I want them to mix with each other because that gives it a really beautiful look. I love how the color bloom sprays go between the patterns of the modeling paste and really get into the grooves and create that beautiful texture. I love this technique, and especially I find it easier to use a paintbrush than using the spout of the actual bottle. But some people do use the spout and create amazing and have amazing results with them. I prefer using a paintbrush, and yes, I am dipping between the different bottles, but you don't have to do that. I do wipe my paintbrush in between the different colors, especially when I go from a dark color to a light color. But if I'm going from like orange to red, I don't bother because they're so similar to each other, they won't taint. And it doesn't really matter because they're all fall colors, so they look really good together. And I'm going around the whole canvas with this exact technique, going back and forth. And I do like to keep this part of the video intact. I don't like cutting out this part because I find that this is a really hard technique to master, and it's really important to see all the different details and how I go around and how I go between the colors and mix them together in different directions. If you think you already know how to do this, then feel free to fast forward this part and just go to the next one when this is drying already. But if you want to see how I created this, and this is a good way of seeing how things mix with each other. So sit down, enjoy and relax, and let the music take you into this art process. I heat set this really well because I wanted to add a color that is not really from the same family, and I wanted to make sure that it doesn't create this muddy look, because I wanted to incorporate a little bit of that burgundy purple wine color. I'm using berry wine, which is a color bloom spray from Prima as well, and doing the same technique, I'm incorporating it into the background. And these colors are one of my favorite combinations lately. I've been doing this a lot. I don't know if it's because it's fall and I love the combination of purple, orange, and red, or is it because it's just they look good together. But I've been using this combination a lot lately. So I am just incorporating this to each one of the panels and making sure they all blend together, because when you add another color bloom spray or when you add water, these sprays reactivate again with the colors, so they end up mixing really well with each other, which is a great asset that you can have when you're using them. Adding a darker color to the mixture makes everything look really bold and nice, and that's what I really love about incorporating this burgundy color into the background. So just sit down, relax again with a little bit more music, and watch the rest of this panel, how I'm adding the purple into the rest of the panels. I heat set the background really well once I was done with all the colors, because they need to be really dry before adding the embellishments. I cut out a bunch of sentiments from the Amber Moon collection paper pad that I thought were befitting for this thankful, grateful panels. And I took a few Prima marketing flowers and resins and other elements, and these are not from the Amber Moon collection, although I will list below the Amber Moon collection flowers because these might not be available. But I just really wanted to use stuff that I already had in my stash. These are old flowers from Prima marketing and old resins. Some of them might still be available, like the leaves, but I just really wanted to incorporate stuff that I had in my stash instead of buying new ones. But feel free to actually buy the Amber Moon flowers with match it perfectly. And I also, as you can see, incorporated a little nest from Prima marketing as well. I took some of the papers that I had left over and I actually distressed all the edges to the sentiments and also to the actual background papers because I really wanted it to match the rest of my canvas. I had already rearranged all the flowers and the sentiments previously, so I wouldn't waste time just rearranging them on the canvases. And all I did then is just take some Fabri-Tac glue and just glue them to the background and just press them firmly down. The Fabri-Tac glue is a great way to glue things, but however, you can also use soft gel or 3D gel to glue things as well. But I do like the Fabri-Tac glue because it's pretty cheap and it glues things really well, especially flowers. I took some Prima Marketing Finnabair Art Alchemy wax in the aged brass color and added them to the resins to give them a really nice golden hue. And then I continued gluing all the other elements to the background. Once everything was glued, I took a few of the Prima frames, some new ones and some old ones, and I framed some of the sentiments. So I took a resin frame and framed the center sentiment, but I also took a wood icon and framed the word blessed and glued it to the background. I also stained the frames with the aged brass wax so they would match the rest of the resins. I gave this canvas as a gift to somebody who helped me a lot, and I was really appreciative for everything that they have done. Finally, I took another metal frame. This is an old Prima metal frame, and used it to frame the word grateful. I added the butterfly, and then I also added some natural elements that I found at the dollar store. I bought these in a jar, and they're not really acorns or pine cones. I'm not really sure the name of them, but they're really cool and they're very textured and they look great in any type of fall project. So I thought they looked perfect for this project and I really wanted to incorporate them in there. So I just glued them in between the flowers to add that extra little bit of texture. Then I took the white gesso again and started adding highlights to all the embellishments. This is a really great technique to bring in some light into any project. You take a small paintbrush and dip it into white paint or white gesso in this case, and you just add it to the edges of all your embellishments. I'm adding it to the flowers, to the resin, to the leaves, to the frame, and that way it creates a beautiful highlight to all the embellishments, but it also ties in everything together. I also use the white gesso to create some texture at the borders of each of the canvases to create those beautiful highlights there as well. Then I took a baby wipe and just used it to remove the stains from the color bloom spray at the edges of each of the canvases. Because the color bloom sprays react with water, it's really easy to just use a wipe and remove the stains. And I did this for each one of the panels. Once all the panels were dry, I actually took a large cardboard that I had cut 14 by 14 from a big cardboard box, and I covered it in white gesso. It gave it a couple layers, so that would be the background for my canvas. I could have used a large 14 by 14 canvas, but I didn't have one, so I figured cardboard would be the best way to put all 9 panels on the background and create that really nice polyptych that I was looking for. I didn't want the panels to be all together. I wanted them to be separate but still be connected through the flowers and embellishments. I also added a couple more resin butterflies and a birdhouse from Prima Marketing. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so appreciative of you always coming and seeing my videos. There's so much to be grateful for in my life, and I'm really appreciative of all of you. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. For more inspiration, visit me on my website or subscribe to my channel. Bye!